Hello, I'm Carrie Gard, and welcome back to Tea Time with Tech Marketing Leaders. Sorry for the hiatus last week. There was some technical difficulties in terms of Sarah and I, and we are now aligned, and that episode will be coming to you in the next few weeks. So stay tuned. Sarah Hartland and I will be having that conversation, and it's going to be awesome. Today, I have the amazing Aurora Starita with me. I'm so excited. I've been counting down the days for this one. And I'm a little bit about Aurora, and then we'll get into the heart of our conversation in regards to technical content and how to write for a technical audience. It's gonna be a breath of fresh air. I feel like there's a lot of conversation swirling around right now in terms of how we do content, especially thanks to Hey Hi showing up and blowing up our spots all over the place. So I think it's going to be nice to realign on who are we talking to and how do we need to say what we need to say in the most human way possible, but also in the quickest way possible. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. A little bit about Aurora. Aurora Starita has that rare left brain, right brain balance. She's a curious creative with a tech degree. As a resourceful content writer, editor, and strategist, she has over a half a decade of experience combining writing, marketing, and technical skills to deliver informative, engaging content for B2B organizations. If you're spending so much time puzzling over revisions that you wonder if you should have written the piece yourself, you need more than a writer. Her process is thorough and gives her a long brief, a little more with a passing comment. Anyway, I love this and I want to keep reading it, but you could all head over to LinkedIn and check it out. It's always nice to know, Aurora, what you do thanks to LinkedIn. But really, what I want to know is your story. So, where are you now, or maybe going, and how did you get there?
Okay, yes. I am in this very moment extremely high on life and my own farts a little bit. So I'm so excited to be here. Probably will say something I'll regret, but that's okay. Um, so where I am right now, but I won't say the name, but I've just gotten an offer um, with an awesome Series C company. The marketing team is literally the land of unicorns. So I am so honored to have been chosen and I'm so excited to start next week. Like this is fast moving thing. But where I started was, well, I mean, obviously I have a technical degree. So I when I was in school, I wasn't as in love with programming as I thought that I would be. Um, but I loved business. We had to take two business classes, and um, we would watch like YouTube videos out of like Y Combinator, and we would have products that we came up with or that we took off a list. I came up with my own, thank you. And you would have to test them and position them and sell them. And I was like, this is fun. Like this I could get obsessed with. And I did, to the detriment of my other classes, get so obsessed with that. And I didn't know that so much of that was marketing until almost like 7 years later. I just thought like, well, it sure would be fun to be a part of a startup. Um, but I have this technical degree, so I have to do something technical. But I was, just sort of on kind of a stay-at-home mom situation. And a friend asked me to do some writing um, in application security. And I was like, whoa, this is so fun. This is amazing. This is such a great time. And like, what a cool way to think about things. Like, I can use the technical side of like what I know, but I can also use the psychology and how do I reach somebody and how do I make the words fun. It's just kind of a cooler, bigger project to me than I kind of ever found with just coding. But I also still do like coding. I don't want to say that I hated it, but marketing is just it's just so weird and open-ended, and there's no, code has to run, it has to work.
Yeah.
You there's like physics there. It has to do something that you said it was going to do. And marketing is just like, you make it up, whatever. And that's the best.
I have a similar sort of balance in that, and I'm not a coder. I know enough HTML to be dangerous and how websites are wired. But I when I hit a technical issue, I call in my husband, who is an actual coder. Um, but I love the logic of coding, which I think lends itself to apply that to marketing because marketing is so open ended. You do need to sort of create your own constraints and guardrails to work within and then, optimize and iterate from there. So I'm with you. I think that's also why I absolutely love it because you can combine that logical thinking coding brain with the open to make marketing a little less open ended because then it's just too open ended.
Exactly.
Uh, I have questions on parenting, but I will have to take that offline.
Sure.
In terms of before we get to the next question I have for you, I just want to remind our audience that we are currently live on YouTube and LinkedIn. So if you are with us, please, please, please comment. We are looking forward to your questions as Aurora lays in and spills all of the tea around technical content. And we will be sure to stop at certain moments to be able to answer those questions along the way. So please, please, please join in the conversation. Or you know what? Have your own sidebar. Those are also super fun. Elijah's hanging out with you. Get on in there. Comment away. Love it. Next question for you, Aurora, as before we get into the topic is, what challenge are you currently facing right now? What feels hard and sort of in your way?
I would say outdated thinking about marketing is probably the biggest one, especially within content. Just SEO strategy that is, maybe 5 years or more out of date. Um, I, to some extent, I wouldn't say it's a challenge for me, but it certainly seems to be a challenge for content writers in general, is AI. Um, I hope to give some advice to people on how to use AI to uh, help you and rise above and know, and people will say, I can tell you didn't use AI. And you'll go, okay, thank you. But yes,
Mission accomplished.
exactly. But yeah, I think outdated thinking in marketing, marketing moves so fast. And sometimes leadership, their heyday, when they were doing super good was 10 years ago or longer or even shorter. It moves so fast that, the
So
strategies that you
fast.
used, yeah. So I would say like that's the big challenge right now.
I can't help myself because we're an SEO agency, so I have to know
Yeah.
what feels outdated to you in terms of SEO strategies that you feel like are still being used that maybe need to like be shelved.
Okay. So um, like if you are a small company, if you're a startup and your plan is to get organic traffic through like high level articles where you've got your parent pages and the child's and all of the keyword things, um, and like Cisco and Palo Alto and, Comcast Technology Solutions and all these other people already have that content, you are wasting your time. You are wasting your money and you are wasting your time. You are never going to get on the first page of Google. It's not going to happen. You got to be
Yeah.
looking for new keywords, new long tail keywords. And you really got to think about, what is the buyer thinking about? What are they searching? Because I could tell you that a person who is about to buy a product doesn't say like best practices for, that's not what they're searching.
No.
Yeah.
No. They are not searching best practices. That's a marketing term, folks. Let's yeah. Oi. I totally agree. I think digital ads is sort of having a similar hiatus of not hiatus. It's having a similar surgence of thinking differently as being a smaller company, being a startup, being in a very crowded space and trying to compete. It's and the way with AI and the way people are searching has changed. So there's just like a lot we got to move with the times for sure. And while some of the foundational elements of SEO still are important, the to your point, the nuance, right, has to be more creative. So yes, that I could talk about that all day, but that's what we're here
Yeah.
for. Well, we'll have a lovely sidebar, and then we'll have another conversation. It's going to be so good. I love having repeats. It's going to be awesome. Before we move into what we do want to talk about today, which, as I mentioned, is content specific, because that's our sweet spot, and how we talk about it to technical audiences, I do have a word from our sponsor. We have a sponsor, folks. Improvato is back again. I'm so grateful to them. Thank you so much for sponsoring Tea Time with Tech Marketing Leaders. A little bit about Improvato. They transform your marketing data into powerful insights by seamlessly unifying and governing marketing data from over 500 plus sources, automating your marketing reporting, and unlocking AI powered actionable insights to boost your ROAS. Head on over to improvato.io/T-time for your free marketing data quality audit. It'll analyze your Google Ads and Trade Desk campaigns to discover inefficiencies that are pulling your ROAS back. So get on over there, download that report, and get going. Thank you so much, Improvato. I appreciate you. Okay, back to the show. Let's talk about content for a technical audience. I feel like the tides are shifting. We've been told for a very long time now to not talk about our product, to be more thought leader, to be high level. It sounds like the buyer's changed a lot. We've talked about this over the past year or two in terms of how they buy. But it sounds like because of who the buyer is, how we talk to them has to change too. Is that fair to say? Because they're, when you're talking about tech and B2B and specifically cybersecurity, talking to really smart people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Absolutely.
So are we being too high level? Do we need to change the way we're doing things? Tell me about the challenge that you're seeing out of the way people are currently using it, and then we'll start moving towards a fix for it.
So I think this might tie in some ways to old SEO strategy, especially for content writers who are not strategists per se, are probably at the bottom of the stack of even understanding why something happened in the past, like why they wrote that article or what the bigger strategy was, they might not know. And so you can kind of get into this, well, this is how it's done and this is how you're supposed to do it, especially if you go read old things and you're going, okay, well, this is how they did it, so this is how we're supposed to do it. Where yes, you're talking about very high level things, staying on the surface. Another reason marketers do that, though, is because they don't understand the technology and it's easier to stay on the surface. And I don't know if you've ever seen this. As a marketer, I can definitely see this in copy sometimes where somebody moves in circles around a few points and the piece doesn't actually move. And for me, I read like a fear. There's like a fear of actually saying anything because the content writer doesn't actually fully understand the topic. And I think that's not necessarily on the content writer. I think a lot of places will set them up for failure. They won't give them SMEs to talk to. They won't provide them with somebody who can help them get that depth. But yeah, when you write things like that, you're just meeting a quota for some number of words and for some number of blogs, and the blogs go on the website and nobody reads them. Buyers are not reading things like that. They're going to go a few sentences in And I don't know that they'll necessarily know what's wrong with the copy, but they're just gonna tap out. They're like, this isn't it. Back. Let me find something else. Like if you even happen to make it onto, Google or somehow onto their computer screen in the first place, if they even were to start reading it, they're not going to finish it. They're not going to share it. It's not going to go anywhere. So when we talk to technical buyers, we not only need to speak, we need to respect their time, right? Like, let's not send them things to read that are 1,200 words but could have been 600. That's a huge thing also, is like some places are still counting content writers on word count. And so you're, trying to extend your content, even though you have
For
no
the
more
sake of it.
things to say. It's very, it feels very like high school essay is due. And you're,
I remember those days.
yeah. Um,
Front and back and double space. Yep.
yeah. So, be careful with word count because there are perverse incentives there where you might get crappy copy because your word count is too high. Um, for some reason, some marketing, managers will want 2,000 words on something that, like, buyers are not going to read that. They're not. Yeah. So,
So what are buyers going to read then? Like where has this shift come? Is it kind of like how video content's gone where long form is a nice to have and something we should have, but really getting the clips from that and getting that out onto social media is sort of the new way people consume information. Is content moving in that direction as well of needing to be a bit more quippy and to the point about one very specific thing versus trying to write a novel?
yes, I mean, I still think there's room for long form content, but if you can make your long form content, like if you have an ebook or a guide, something that is genuinely helpful. It does have to be genuinely helpful to the customer, to the buyer. Like it's, or they're nobody's going to download it. And I'm kind of anti-gated content in general. I think there are some areas where you can have it, but in general, I think most things should be free and available, and it should be a company's contribution to the community to make it that way. Um, but yeah, so I think if you can take something long form, and then this is just awesome, like use of time too, and use of effort, get your snackable bites out of it,
Mm-hmm.
use those on social media, use those to drive interest in the longer piece. Because I mean, it's, the difference between reading, a short blog and reading an entire book. Like, persuasion does take time. And if you are making a particular argument for how people should think about something or how they should be, you still need that long form, whether that's long form video or written content. It takes time, and that's still valuable to do that, but you won't drive interest. Nobody is trawling LinkedIn going like, where's my next 3,000 word PDF to look at? So, yeah, you
Yeah.
have to got to grab them first with some really interesting hooks.
I find the hooks to be so, I wrote about this yesterday on LinkedIn, and actually I've been using, I don't know if I've been getting a little help from ChatGPT. I'm not gonna lie. On like, I wrote this LinkedIn post, and I just need a thing. What's going to be the thing that's going to hook it better than whatever I have written? Because I know what I have written is not very good, right? So I've been finding it really helpful because I find the hook so hard to write. Is that why is it so hard to write a hook? Is there like best practices on what a hook should entail? Like, or is it just practice? Is it just A/B testing? Like, is it all of the above?
All of the above, for sure. A lot of times I find writers, or just anyone who has written something, not writers per se, but like a lot of times your hook will be there, but you've put it in the bottom. And so you kind of have to flip your story. Like if you're telling a story and you've got this climax, if you can bring that to the top and then work down, if that makes
Mm,
sense.
yeah.
So like a lot of times just check what you've already written. The hook might be down in the bottom, but it also might be
The
like kind of a,
punchline.
yeah, exactly. So if you can
Kind of want to
bring
leave
that
the
to the top
punchline.
and then wind down, especially LinkedIn, because you get like what, 200 characters or something before the fold. Like it's really tiny.
I always have to like, you only get 200 characters for the full, but then you also only get so much copy in the post. Like I always have
Oh
to
yeah, me too.
refine to get it underneath.
Yes, I know. And it feels like you have a lot, but then as you start writing, you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'll have to shorten that story.
Make it a little more impactful. Well, I think that's what we're really trying to talk about today. Let's talk about the audience in particular. So when we're talking about a technical audience and honoring their time, in your
Mhm.
experience, what do you think they care most about? If you had to TLDR it or to have the hook or get to the point, what do you need to lead with to bring them in initially and capture their attention? Is it like what?
Their problems. It's like it all comes back to like just product marketing basics and knowing what they care about. What are their problems? What are their issues? But I also think that there's room for, I mean, the best way, especially on social media, to kind of get them hooked on their problems is to have a meme that shows their problems, and that will be shared and that will be loved and they will love you. So, it's also brand. It's not just all, in one area. But yeah, I mean, I think especially if you're kind of thinking of a LinkedIn audience, there definitely are, I would say there's like two camps. I would say who knows what the percentages are. My very scientific guess based on nothing except just what I'm seeing is like maybe 75% of LinkedIn is kind of using it for fun in a way. Like it's industry stuff, they're getting information, but they're not trying to go heavy. Um, they're not trying to get super duper technical. Like I would say don't post your super duper technical things on LinkedIn. They rarely get a lot of traction. Sometimes you'll get some deep conversations with like between, maybe two, three, four nerds, but like you won't get super, like they don't do as well. Funny stuff does well. And 75% of people are looking for that on LinkedIn. And like maybe 25% of people really legitimately, they like, who they are because they'll complain about all the rest of the posts. They always post about that. Like, I am just here to keep up with my industry and I don't want to see these political posts and I don't want to see these jokes and these memes. But they are a minority and they're probably not buying. So
They're
go with
just
jokes.
loud.
Yeah. Just can't
Yeah,
have fun.
yeah. I mean, personal content does really well on LinkedIn, surprisingly. So
Hmm.
coming back to that human aspect, everybody just wants to interact with real people. So knowing who those
Hmm.
real people are and knowing you as a brand and the people behind it is definitely where things are headed. But I love this aspect of like finding the humor again. But when you're talking to a really technical audience, um, how do you find that, like, I guess it's the inside jokes. This comes back to you need to be technical yourself, right? We were talking a little bit about how you can tell when a content writer is sort of dancing around the issue because they don't really understand the issue and they're afraid to actually say it out loud because if they say it wrong, they will get reamed.
Hmm.
Um, I think LinkedIn is a bit similar, right? So it's you you got to be part of the industry to be able to make fun of it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But
So
ChatGPT is your shortcut. ChatGPT can be your cheat because Like, look, you're not going to get a big college textbook and learn everything, but you can, and I do this all of the time. One of my really good friends is not a marketer. He's a distinguished engineer. He is so technical. And it's not just like technical concepts. Every time he talks, he's rattling off like 10 different like Amazon, like AWS products and like 10 different companies. And it's like he is so in it. And instead of saying, John, what does this mean? What does that mean? What does this mean? I just copy that whole comment, I put it into ChatGPT, and I say, tell me what all of these acronyms are. And the cool thing is, I say, tell me what all of these acronyms are. ChatGPT, so smart, will not only tell me what all of the acronyms are, it'll tell me all, like anything that's kind of close to it, anything that's like a name of a product or anything else. And it'll say, this is what this is, this is what this is, this is what this is, this is what this is. And then it'll give me a summary at the end. What this commenter is saying is whatever
Yes.
about these products. And now, like, did I learn this thing? Am I going to remember it forever? Maybe not, but in that moment, I understood. And when you add all of those moments up, you can so quickly just catch up and be able to talk the talk with your technical, audience, even though you're just a marketer. So
Man,
that's
chat is like open the door. Yeah, I think this is really helpful because yeah, I mean, my like I mentioned, my husband's a developer. He's very technical. He's got his niches in like .NET, which is not something everybody uses, and so and he builds products for developers. So it can't get any more meta than that, right? And but he still has that, even though he's a technical person, he is not dry, right? He still has all the things he loves to do outside of being a developer. And so I think to your point about memes and sort of those inside jokes and sort of poking fun at the industry is a great opportunity to build that trust and to try to find your in that human way. And chat is definitely a way to figure some of that out. By perusing the content of folks and bringing that into chat and saying, okay, here's what my audience is talking about. How can I lend myself into the conversation in line with what my product does? And we can play, have some play and some fun and like, let's see what we got here. So I ChatGPT has become quite the thought partner.
Oh yeah. I was so like not impressed with AI. And I was very skeptical of it, skeptical of people being like the hype and everything. And the first few times that I tried, ChatGPT, I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, like I'm impressed. It's cooler than some of like the games that I would play as a kid where you would like try to talk to some kind of bot, but it only had like this tiny menu of things that it could say back to you. Like obviously it's cooler than that. But yeah, in the last, I don't know, 6 months, it's become like I'm using it all the time. And I also use it to, and you have to be careful. You can't use it for fact checking everything. But if I am writing a piece of something that I know is the technology has been around for at least long enough that a lot of people have written blogs about it, which is going to be in the training data, I can ask, did I get this right? Did I speak about this correctly? Am I understanding it right? And if I've got some little tiny thing, or ChatGPT will also pick up like, well, this is correct, but also you should mention this. It's super helpful if you're trying to, fake being more technical than you are. ChatGPT will help you. You just got to use it smart.
Yes, I feel like the more I'm talking to content writers about AI and ChatGPT, the more I was sort of skeptical at first of like, do I even bring up AI with these folks? Am I going to get in trouble? Like, are they even,
So
they're
angry.
probably not using it and they're probably angry about it. But yeah, but the more I talk about it, the more I'm finding it's actually very much not taboo. Everybody's definitely leaning into it. And you're all using it in an incredibly smart way that isn't having chat necessarily write your content. I find that it can't write my content as well as me. It can't quite capture my voice, which is more conversational. Like I even, if you've read my LinkedIn post, I actually pretend the audience is asking me questions so that I make it very conversational. Like I kind of call myself out.
Yeah.
And chat can't figure that stuff out, right?
No.
So, but I love what you're saying in regards to double checking or using it to bring ideas forward and to like not dance around the idea, but actually like nail it down is a great way to use the tool. Let's talk about the flow of content for a minute because I love that you talked about for LinkedIn sort of putting the punchline at the top as the hook. When we met in our prep call, something you said that I really liked was about even just in your emails, there's sort of a format that works really well in terms of getting to the point. I feel like I mentioned this when I sort of opened up the conversation, but it feels like for so long we've been told to not talk about our product,
Mm,
right? Don't talk about features, don't talk about
mm.
your product. I feel like given the audience, we might be learning that actually getting to the point is more important than trying to appeal to their thought leadership, humanity sort of side in that regard. So help me,
Yes.
yeah, bring me through on that in terms of do you always want to get to the point? When do you not? And then what's sort of that flow of best practice of talking to that audience in a way that's a little bit more bing bam boom?
Well, I mean, you want to get to the point about what their problems are specifically instead of talking about what the industry's problems are, right? Like, so,
Mm,
you
good
know,
distinction.
today's cybersecurity landscape, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter to them what is going on, everywhere. It matters what's going on with their job, and they don't need to be educated on the very basics of what their job is. They need to be educated on that they have this issue, this thing that stops them from getting their job done, and you solve that. And so they have a pain point, you solve that pain point, and you can get to that really fast. Um, but I would say, generally, it's just they don't have a lot of time. You're not going to get their eyes for that long. So, the state of the world is probably not that interesting to them. What their state is right now, most likely because you know what their tech stack is, or and some of this comes to like accounts-based marketing, but even if you don't have that and you're just, trying to get it out to a particular audience and don't there are generalizable problems within your space, wherever it is in cybersecurity that you can talk about, but you should be specific to specific problems and not like, yeah, I don't know. The landscape thing always comes up. The ever
You
evolving
know,
cybersecurity landscape.
yeah. I think we all know what the general problems are within cyber. I've never really heard anybody call it out so crystal clear of really honing on what problem your product solves. I feel like we've gotten away from that a bit in this notion of not being allowed, quote unquote, allowed to talk about our product and features. But at the end of the day, your product and feature solve specific problems or multiple problems, and what are those and how do you communicate that and ask the right questions, right? So I guess that's how for you and your team from a content perspective, where are you figuring out, with the help of maybe some internal folks, what that pain is and how to talk about it in the same way that your audience is experiencing it? Because unless you're living
So
it day to day, I imagine, that's kind of it's hard to do. It's possible, but it's hard.
Reddit is such a good, place to find exactly how people are talking about the pain. Because it's not just like identifying their pain. You also need to identify how they talk about their pain because you want to use those same words somehow. That marketing that works really well is like a mirror to the audience. So Reddit is great. Like, so you can kind of get from like a PM or somebody more technical, kind of yeah, our customers were asking about this and they were having this issue, so we added this feature. Um, and then you can kind of use that to kind of start your journey, your search through. Reddit's great because it's like open to the public, but if you can get yourself onto Slack channels and Discords and things where there are a lot of cybersecurity people talking, and
The dream.
it's not necessarily that you need to talk to your buyer all the time because the buyer is no longer usually one person. The
It's
whole
committee.
it's a whole committee. And in some ways, every single user you should kind of consider as like a little part of your buyer and like how you want to reach them. But yeah, use the like people love to talk. It's just on the internet just talking all the time. Like go find it and go steal it and then put it in your copy.
I think it's just Reddit's interesting, and there was a talk that was done at Cyber Marketing Con about it in regards to listening.
Hmm.
Like he kind of opened the talk about in regards to marketing on Reddit, and really he ended with you don't market on don't know.
Oh, Elliot
Use Reddit.
Volkman's talk
Yeah.
on yes, I was there.
Right?
He was great.
Yeah.
I was
It was
there.
so good. We were there. We were
We
right
were
there.
both
We
there. We
didn't
were together.
ah
You probably saw me because I was actually volunteering. So I was there in like a purple vest,
recheck.
probably.
Small world, folks. Small world. Halfway
Small
around the world now,
world.
but we
Yes.
we collided. It didn't even know it.
We
Oh,
didn't know it. But
yes.
yeah, great talk. Yes, do
Elliot's
not
talk.
market. I have left a few comments on Reddit like where I've said like, but please take every single thing I say with a grain of salt because I am a marketer. Because I was genuinely trying to be helpful and not market. So I think honesty is always the best policy. So if you're going to comment on Reddit, tell them who you are. Don't lie.
Mm,
Don't act like you're another user because anybody can click your username and see that you only leave comments about this one company and you're always saying how great they are and nobody's going to trust you.
they'll
So,
figure it out. They will
but
absolutely figure out.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, purple vest. And then you don't have to talk on Reddit though. Don't feel like you
Yeah.
have to engage. You can just take. You
Yeah.
can just take the
Listen.
words.
Yes, Trevor Van Worden, who is in our comments right now, hanging out, having a lovely conversation with Elijah, was at Cyber Marketing Con as well. We were buds. We were hanging out. So, yeah, next year we'll have a reprise.
Oh yeah,
It'll be awesome. It'll be awesome.
absolutely.
There's actually a really great conversation that's happening in the comments around a couple things you had said, Aurora. One was about the gating aspect, um, and how, yeah, we just need to not do that. Trevor said one of the things about gated is that there's not a differentiation between gating as organic search indexable content that resides on your website. So I think that's such a good point in regards to talking about SEO and old practices. Actually, ungating and not having them as PDFs and as like actual content on your website is helpful
No,
from
well,
an SEO
yeah,
perspective.
very
So
true. Yeah, good point.
so that lends itself. Is there anything else in terms of we talk a lot about ungating content and how it should live, um, and how to measure. I think that's the biggest pain point that comes into flex of like when people push for gating and ungating content. How do you, within your organization, talk about ungating content and the importance of it, and sort of help bring people along when they're having that moment of like, but then we won't get our MQLs and our leads, and then what do we do?
Again, I mean, so in the organization that I'm going to, I already know that they are all with me on that. Like MQLs is not, that is not the sole metric that you are going to be measured on, and ungate, ungate, ungate. But in some of the other places, where I've worked, I'm just hitting my head on the wall. Like it's really disappointing to me personally as a content writer, because I put so much work into something and I throw in a lot of personality. I often come up with most of the graphics, and not that I do them, but at least, the ideas. And then amazing designers put their time into it. And then you're
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
and now all that hard work, and it's like, okay, I get it. It's a commercial piece. It's not going to go in the Louvre. It's not going to go in the Library of Congress, but still I want someone to see it. I want it to have some impact. But I mean, generally, if people out there need to make an argument, it's like the KPIs in general need to be looked at always for perverse incentives. Are you setting up metrics that cause people to do things that are actually ineffective because they're working for the metrics instead of working to be effective, to actually reach your overall goal? So leadership just always has to watch out for that and has to evaluate that. And, if you are not a leader, if you're an individual contributor and you see this happening, give it a shot, bring it up.
Yeah.
I want to be effective, and I want to be considered a good employee and get my next, get my bonus or whatever, get my good performance review. But these things are in conflict. So what can we do?
What metrics are you using from a content standpoint, especially if it's ungated, to know that that it is effective and it is helping towards the ultimate goals of revenue and pipeline?
Yeah, isn't that tough? I
It is.
think
Yeah.
yeah, I think that it's really hard to say like there's going to be one metric. I think that CMOs and other marketing leadership, it's not up to me to put these things into place and to measure them. And smaller companies are going to have a smaller budget to actually take measurements. Um, in a lot of ways, you kind of have to, if you're a really small company, you're going to have to track like vibes, right? Like, how is this
I love
going?
that.
What are customers, when people are reaching out, are they telling you like, hey, I saw this, or I saw you guys were involved in this or doing that? And then if you're bigger and you've got more money, you can actually track like brand awareness, and you can track that, the actual number of readers and things. And then it's just the sales cycles are so long in cyber that it's just
Yeah.
generally really difficult. I almost feel like you just have to, I don't know, you should please
Do
have
you have
somebody
leading
on who will tell you.
indicators? Yeah, I mean, even leading indicators, right? So are you looking at engagement in terms of with the content and knowing that you're getting the right people, um, and that the rate, I guess it's really just about eyeballs at that point, which isn't bad as long as they're the right eyeballs. I
Yeah.
think at this day and age, it pulling up those KPI, the leading indicators, right,
Yeah.
that map towards those business outcomes are where we need to sort of put those pieces together from a correlation versus causation standpoint. And so I think we're headed in that direction as marketers. We know that that's what needs to happen. We're just having some internal battles with
Yeah.
the folks who still want those MQLs. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, let's not do that. Let's put some key leading indicators on here to know that what's working and what's not towards, moving people from through the intent funnel towards those
Yeah.
ultimate demos. But yeah, let's not gate if we don't have
Yeah.
to. We
Don't
don't have
gate.
to. Don't gate. I'm here for it. I am here for it. I could talk to you all day, Aurora. I'm so grateful for this conversation. In terms of how we connect with our technical audience and using ChatGPT to help us along the way, to be able to say the thing, to know who they are, to know what they care about, to be able to reach them as humans and with a little bit of humor, to use Reddit to make sure we're using the same language in terms of the problems we're solving. Thank you so much for all of this amazing. We're going to have clips, Elijah, clips for days on this. I'm so excited. Before we go, is there anything we didn't cover? One last tidbit that you want to leave people with as they continue down the content journey with AI, sort of shaking things up and having to change the way we do SEO?
Okay. Well, I had a LinkedIn post about how not to sound like ChatGPT. I just want to remind
That's a good
people,
one.
use ChatGPT. Don't sound like ChatGPT. And what that means is mostly don't repeat yourself. Like, especially if you're writing like a blog, something longer form, a paragraph can stand on its own. And honestly, paragraphs should be 2 sentences long these days. Everybody has ADHD. Everybody is doesn't have time. You cannot do these blocks of text. So 2 sentences,
Break
and
it
then
up.
that's it. Say those 2 sentences. Do not say the first sentence again. Stop doing that. And then also, um, don't write like your English teacher is going to read it and like grade you on it. Write like you're talking to a friend. You know, maybe not depending on how you talk to your friends, but write like you're having a nice casual conversation. And the other thing that I want to say is that like technical buyers, obviously, people they're technical, they're buying technical solutions, they're smart, but they don't want to like they don't want to read your like French philosophy level. Like it should be really clear. And you don't have to use big words. You don't have to, break your thesaurus out. Just be truly casual and you will sound good and you won't sound like ChatGPT. And also say the weird thing, put your silly joke in there. Maybe it'll make it, maybe it won't, but you will be surprised how often the person above you either doesn't notice, didn't check your stuff very, very well, or liked it and was like, you know what, let's throw that in there. That's funny. And then it grabs people's attention when you have kind of semi-dry material that has a little joke in it, but also don't be too jokey. Just also
You gotta balance.
you got to
Gotta
balance.
balance.
Yes.
I love it. I'm so grateful. Where can people find you, Aurora?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Aurora Starita, and it's also like the URL linkedin.com/in/Aurora Starita. I grabbed it. There's no other Aurora
Nice.
Staritas, so
Yes.
I got it.
One of a kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually took my husband's last name by design for that reason because there was a million Carrie Ellis's, but there was only one Carrie Guard. I was like, yes, SEO
Yes.
for the win.
Heck yeah.
Um, yeah, so I'm so for that. Amazing. Before we go, my last question to you is because we've been talking about the importance of being human
Mm-hmm.
outside of work, which I know you have lots of joy inside of work right now because things are happening, but outside of work, what is currently bringing you joy?
Um, it's like silly, but just decorating my house has like just really been fun. And it's terrible because I do end up with like on Instagram reels, like watching these home renovations and it happens in like 30 seconds and it seems really possible for me to do that thing. And then I realize how they speed up time and cut things. But yeah, I've just been enjoying, just making my space cozy.
It looks so cozy. It looks so
Yeah.
cozy. I love it.
It's a bit
Awesome.
dark for an office, honestly. I might have made a
For
mistake
now,
here, but yeah.
it's Yeah, but it's all you're iterating. It's going to be great. Next time we see you,
Exactly.
you're going to yeah, it's going to be a little different every time. I look forward to
100%.
it, which means we just need to hang out again. So, we're going
Sounds
to do
good to
that.
me.
Hey, well, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you to our listeners. Thank you, Trevor Van Worden, for joining us as always, and Elijah for holding down the fort. I appreciate you both. If you liked this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. This episode was brought to you by MKG Marketing and Improvato. MKG Marketing is a digital marketing agency that helps complex B2B brands build trust with their audience through SEO and digital ads. This episode was hosted by me, Carrie Gard, CEO and co-founder of MKG Marketing. And if you I can't forget about my podcast, Sidekick, music mix and mastering done by Elijah Drown. And if you'd like to be a guest, DM me. I'd love to have you on. If you're a marketing leader and you want to have a conversation, spill all the tea, let's do it. I'd love it. Thank you all so much.